This is your host, Tina Boyle Whyte, the host of the Bridge Broadcast Show. And today I'm excited, as I always am, to come to you and talk to you about the second issue that I'm going to be speaking on as it relates to the book that I'm walking through with you. John C. Maxwell, No Limits. Blow the cap off your capacity. So last week, and as we started this year, I've been walking you through faith. And before I go on, the Bridge Broadcast Show is a show about helping you get from where you are to where you want and need to be. And so our desire is to really help people live the life that God has intended for them to live out their potential and their purpose to the maximum level. And so I shared with first season that I will be using different books that are tools that will support me in supporting you get from where you are to where you want and need to be. And so I'm a John C. Maxwell leadership coach, mentor, trainer. And today I'm going to be using this book and the second chapter. Last week we talked about capacity equals ability plus awareness plus, what do we do? Let's just take a look at this. This is a beautiful thing. So capacity equals ability plus awareness plus choices. That's what equals your capacity. And so this week I really want to talk about this blowing the cap off. And I just want to walk you through this piece because this is a beautiful thing. And what God is showing me in this new season, I will be turning, and I'm celebrating the fact that I'm turning 50 this year. And I am just so grateful to God for this new season. And in this new season, and you don't have to wait till you turn 50 to blow the cap off just blow the cap off, to tap into your capacity, to tap into your potential. You don't have to wait that long. But it just happens so that I just happen to be at 50, and it just really is coming to a full circle. And so for me, life has been a journey. And so I encourage you to come across the bridge, to really make your way across the bridge, only because I have really been going through my journey of faith and walking through life and walking through the bridge. And so, I just encourage and invite everyone to join me on that path. And I'm just really excited. And please don't just be patient with me, because I get excited about things, and especially when it's areas of growth and development, I get really excited about the ability to see people just go to higher levels, the higher levels in yourself, higher levels in God, higher levels in your work environment, because we are made up of spirit, soul, and body, and we cannot distinguish between the spirit, soul, and body. And so today I just walk with me as I walk through, this chapter. And this is chapter 2. It says, blow off the caps that limit your life. And limit. Let me just talk about limit. Limit is anything that holds you or stop you. The bridge, really, when you think about the bridge, and the reason that, I do the bridge is that in life we have several bridges that we have to cross over. And if you don't make it through a bridge, you find yourself stuck in one place. And many times when we're stuck, we find ourselves stuck, and there's really no one to help. And especially if you are one who may not communicate, because people are not really intuitive, what's going on with you, or people really don't want to know really what's going on with you. And so you can go through life and you can pass through life, and people will just, it'll just be life. And, that's how we find people committing suicide, because they felt at some point that they didn't have anybody to support them. And so I'm here to remind you that it is important to take that next step, to not limit, because there's so much more to life than you can live. And an example that he brings up right away in the chapter is a wonderful man. And I want you to YouTube Nick Vucevic. And his name is spelled Nick Vujic, Nick Vucevic. And Nick Vucevic has found himself on stages. This is a man with no legs, no arms, and just really just his torso and his head. Not to be funny, but when you look up the video, you will see. And this gentleman has not let the circumstances around how he arrived here. He has not allowed those things to limit him from pursuing anything. And he's just traveling the world. I mean, he's doing something that I would love to do, traveling the world, telling his amazing story. And so John Maxwell, he talks about this this young man as one who he blew the caps off his limitation. And so Success Resources is another organization that has promoted him, because he had a very difficult time growing up. He was born without any limbs, and he said he was often bullied and he often felt lonely. And this young man, he often contemplated suicide, like I just mentioned earlier. But guess what? He persevered. He persevered. And, you know, he talks about in his book, Life Without Limits, he says Helen Keller, who lost both her sight and hearing in childhood, but became a renowned activist and author, said that there is no such thing as a secure life. It does not exist in nature. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Risk, then, is not just part of life, it is life. The place between your comfort zone and your dream is where life takes place. And I just want to pause and think about that. Where life takes is between your comfort zone and your dream. And the reason that people don't make it to the other bridge is that either one, we get stuck in comfort and we just stay there and we just stay right there. Or two, we don't like to take a risk. That's two. Comfort or risk, and either one could keep you at a place where you will never really see the fullness of what God has prepared for your life. And so when we're thinking about this, it's really like walking, a tightrope. Being on the tightrope is living; everything else is waiting. And so when you think about this, he believed that his purpose was to speak to audience, to become a motivational speaker. But yet he had no experiences, he had no resources, and he had no invitations. And boom, he just said waiting. We wait and wait, we vision. And this is just a reminder that I will be doing a workshop on intentional visioning. So be looking out for this. But Nick Vucevic, he visioned what he could be and what he could do in life. And now today, he's living his best life, even with the limitations that many others would look and say he's limited, but he has no limits. And so, he goes on to advise in his book, he advises people to dream big. How big are you dreaming? And be a little foolish. And foolish, I would say, is just being risky. He says, if we went by the world's definition, who am I supposed to be because I look weird? Well, surely this guy can't have a productive life. Surely he doesn't have a sense of humor. These are the things that we put in our minds about people when we see a certain thing. Surely he can't love life. We stereotype people all the time in the world. And so, we often get this thought that people are not good enough. And I have a friend who's going through, she was diagnosed with a rare disorder that has really caused her mobility to diminish. And she talks about the process of having to be looked at and almost in a shunning way, that I don't know if when you're healthy that you don't know how to respond to people who are not healthy. But she said the feelings of like downtrodden, the opinions that we project on people who look like they have limits, we make it worse for those who are healthy. So I want to transition and say, please, before I transition, please consider your limits and then blow them off. Blow them off. Like blow. Like when I say blow them off. So I want to be, as I'm looking at this, John Maxwell tells us to recognize your value and increase your capacity. And so, you know, when you start thinking about this, recognizing your value, and in life, you know, sometimes, you know, and I'll talk a little bit about this a little later. If you don't have a outlet, you will find yourself feeling like you're not good enough, you're not adequate. And I've been there. I've had to work through some things that I didn't always feel sufficient. And so no matter what you do, and this is a thing that always blows my mind, because I think about the people. There was 3 people that killed themselves in the last 3 to 4 years. Kate Spade. I don't know the backdrop of the story. Anthony Bourdain, CNN. Kate Spade was the famous purse. She owned the purses, and then she sold it, and then she had issues, or what, I don't know the whole story. Anthony Bourdain, he was a well-known CNN like documentarist, if that's the word. I'll make it up now. And then Robin Williams. I mean, people who had what we see as fame, recognition, money, lifestyle, but yet there's that hidden piece that exists down within us that everybody doesn't know what you're going through. And so God knows. That's the most important. God knows. And so these people, I can only imagine what was going through their minds, you know, to have everything, again, from our perspective, but then yet you take your own life. And see, it's one thing to take your life, and then there's another thing to have your life taken. And so these people made a choice to take their life. And so we're talking about capacity. And so, you know, I want to encourage you, just like John Maxwell, my mentor, would say, I want to encourage you to let you know that you have great value. You have great potential. You are not only good enough, but you're better than good enough. And you have the ability to achieve anything that you desire in life. See, you know, it's about removing those caps. And, you know, there's caps you can't remove. There's some things that we were born with, like Nick Vucevic. He can't remove that cap. He can't remove the fact that he was not born with limbs. I do believe God is a healer, but I believe also that some people were born to be able to show the express glory of God. And Nick Vucevic is definitely a gentleman, and he knows and he speaks about God in his messages. And so John gives us a couple of caps that we can't remove. And so here's a couple. Birth caps. You have no control over your birth, nor can you go back in time and change it. You know, I could never, you know, go back and re-enter into my mother's womb, you know, unless you do a spiritual birth. Now that's a whole different thing, but you just have to live with some things. And so when we think about, I used to be a social worker, and so we were just talking about this, helping those who are in situations that have to be emergency moved. And we were talking about how we can pack bags to help people kind of escape their situations. And so I can't change my place of birth. I was born, thank God I was born in the States. I happen to be, of course, you see that, African American. But I could have been born in a different time, in a different country, in a different era. I could have been born in the slavery era. I could have been born in the civil rights era. But I was born in this time, in the 19th century, the 20th century. And so I was born in this time. 1969, if I got my centuries wrong. And so you can't do anything about that. And so I can't change that. The year of my birth, I can't change that. You know, I just talked about that. You know, when and where how you were born, and my birth family, I can't change that. You know, I'm blessed to. I was blessed to be born to my mother and father. However, I was a child of divorce at a very young age, and so. The children I used to work with in social work, many of those kids who were born into drug situations or traumatic situations, they couldn't change those. And so you just can't. And you can't change your birth characteristics, such as your genetic makeup, your race, your bone structure, your height. You know, those are just things you can't change. And so when you're feeling discouraged, John says, just think about Nick Vucevic. Please YouTube him and look at this gentleman. And there's some things, other things such as life caps. We don't have any control over how our life begins, but there are also many things that happen to us in our lives that we can't control either. And so have you had something in your life that you couldn't control, like a death of a father or death of a mother when the child was young, or being placed in foster care, or being bounced around from place to place, or, you know, how your mother treated you. She may not have known how to raise you, but the fact that you're still here, you may have some trauma, or you may have some emotional hurts and pains, and those are the things that, you know, you have somebody you work with, and so you can't change those. And so you can. So let's talk about some things that you can. Caps you can change. And Nick talks about this, Nick Vucevic. He says the biggest temptation, I believe, is to feel comfortable, to feel like you've worked through all of that here on earth and are satisfied with that life. He says, I think that the problem far too many people who aren't successful, productive, fulfilled as they would like to be, they mistakenly think they've worked through their issues. They've reached their capacity, and there are no mountains that they can climb. They settle and they get comfortable. And so I want to take a moment and just really talk about this whole place of settling, this whole place of being comfortable. How many of us have settled with things that life serve us? Like how do you just say, okay, I can't go anymore? And the funny thing is, my husband always say, you can't blame my wife for trying. She will try it all. And even if I fail, I will try it. I may not tell others, but when I hit something big, guess what? I promise you it's coming out. And so don't get comfortable. Don't settle, because just at your settling point, your breaking point is right there. Have you ever seen the man that was hacking the wall, and it looked like a apple, and he said, you know what, I can't go anymore, I just cannot do it. It's just this whole resignation that comes over your countenance, and just as you give up, the gold mine is on the other side. I encourage you today not to give up, not to give in, not to resign. And so I want to talk to you, really. I want you to look at the story of when God told Samuel, the prophet, to go to Jesse's house in Bethlehem. And when Samuel arrived, he was talking to Jesse in Bethlehem, and he was saying, I'm looking for a king. God has sent me here to find the king. And so the funny thing is, Jesse lined up all his boys. He lined up all these boys that look like a king. Now, we're talking about the caps that other people put on you. Now, remember, I was talking about stereotypes before. Think about caps that people put on you, and think about the caps that you put on other people. And I'm asking you to walk back from that and step into a place and think about how you cannot do this to others. And so he said, he lined up the boys, and one boy was Eliab, E-L-I-A-B. He says, he looks like a king. Now, imagine this, you know, when you go from elementary to middle, high school, college, workplace, you know, it's like, oh, you know what, you look like this, or you look like you can do this. And a funny story, I wear many hats. And so yesterday I had a very unique situation. I'm looking for a new opportunity or a new organization to expand my ability to officiate. And so I went to the event, and the person said, you know what, you got a good recommendation, but I need to see you. And so I want you to get on the floor and run with the person. So I got on the floor and I ran with the person, I shadowed, and even the people that I was seeing on the floor. And now, mind you, this is basketball. The person who was observing me said, well, you know, I don't think you're ready for this situation. I don't think you're ready to handle this level. They're moving too fast and you're just not ready. And so we're talking about the things or the labels that people put on you. And so I was like, okay, I took it with good stride. I'm like, okay, fine, I got it. And so I stood around for a few moments, and another official or referee came up to me in this basketball camp. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 for tournaments going on, for tournaments, yeah. And so he looks at me, he said, are you staying? I said, well, I was just here to, to demonstrate, I didn't get paid, but I'm just here. He said, well, you know what? I need you to stay here because this other person didn't show up. And so I'm going to need you for this court, and I'm going to move this and that. And before I knew it, just as he said to me that he didn't think I was ready, I was put out there. And just in that moment, just when people are ready to give up on you, you have to know that you have to endure. You cannot change your countenance. You cannot become resigned. Had I become like, oh, I'm just going home, I would have missed it. And it was a matter of 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes after he told me I was not good enough and I was not ready. And so when people tell you you're not good enough or you're not ready for something, you said, thank you very much. And you keep smiling and you keep going and you do not stop. And so back to the story. So anyway, as he was looking for a king in Jesse's house, Samuel, he said, you know what? None of these boys that you've lined up for me is not the king. And so he said, somehow he found, and you had to read the story specifically, he figured out that there was somebody that was missing, and it was David. David was out in the back he was dirty, he was smelly, he was out of breath. He was back there tending to what he was doing. He was tending to the animals. And when he discovered David, he was like, this is the one. See, nobody saw David's potential. God saw it. See, God sees your potential. God sees what's in you. No matter who sees what's in you, God sees what's in you. And I have to go back and tell you, before I got to the event yesterday, I was singing this song, and it's a song that comes from Romans 8. I believe it's Romans 8, yes. And so the song was singing, yes, I know that all things work together for my good. See, I didn't know I was going over there, but I knew it was going to work out for my good. I know what God has promised you, or me. What has God promised you that you are facing, that it looks daunting, that you have to know? Yes, I know that all things work together for my good. And then you say, and I know that all things work together for my good. What do you know? What are you thinking about? What is that in your life where you just like, is working out for my good? And so, so the story goes on. You read it in the Old Testament. So that who somebody minimized and thought was not worthy, he ended up slaying Goliath. And so after he slayed Goliath, Saul called for him. The story, King Saul, the story is such a beautiful story as you look at having those things blown off. And before I wrap up today, I want you to know this, that please don't look for others' approval. When we all do it. We all have an approval syndrome, and even I. And God is yet healing me even now of being looking for others' approval. You know, as a middle child, you want to make sure everybody's happy. I was a middle child. I wanted the family to be happy. I wanted everybody to be happy. I wanted my mom to be happy. I wanted my dad to be happy. Even as a young child, when I didn't even know, I wanted everybody to be happy. But I had to know, even at this age, I cannot be focused on the approvals from others. So if that's you, if you are the one, step away from it. Ask God to heal you today. And living in a place where you're limited, expand your capacity, move from where you are. I tell you about being an official. I'm telling you, that's expanding my capacity. And I have never played sports or I never coached sports. Yeah, this one is pushing me and it's causing me to grow in ways in which I have not seen. And so um, I just, as I wrap up today, please know that God sees your potential. He knows everything about you. He knows every strand of hair on your head, even the hair that I add. He knows every strand of hair on my head. He knows every particle of you. He knows all about you. He loves you. He cares for you, and he wants you to soar in him. And so today I encourage you to step into that place. Blow the cap off your limits, blow the cap off your life, just blow it off by faith. And I tell you, it's a walk of faith. And so today, again, I encourage you to just know that God loves you and he wants the best for you, and he wants you to walk in potential that he's given you. Please join me. I have several places where you can find me. My Facebook page, I'm a coach. Tina Boyle Whyte, TinaBoyleWhyte.com. Please let me know that you are connecting with what God has given me to give you. I have joy and I have excitement to be here with you. So please reach out to me. And the other thing, be looking out for my workshop, Intentional Envisioning 2019. And also I have a private Facebook page, Reset 2019. Reach out to me and tell me that you'd like to be a part of this group, because God is doing some great things. This is a year of reset, and you don't have to be 50 years old to have a reset in your life. Reach your potential by faith this year. I love you. God bless you. And I am seeing and speaking the best over your life, no matter what situation you're in, no matter what part of the world you're in. Know that God loves you and he wants you to reach and tap into your potential. God bless you. Have a good day, good night, good morning, until I see you again. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to WYTV7. Can you make us your #1 listen to network? Visit us on the web at WYTV7.org. Contact us. We are currently accepting guests to share their story of hope with our audience around the world.